Hey, and welcome to the, I think this is the third Slatelaive podcast now. Today's going to be a bit of a different one. We haven't got the usual cast and crew with us. However, I am joined this time by a fellow streamer and also a good friend of mine, Melkandor.
Hello.
From across the way over in America. Probably a good time for this one to be recorded, seeing as we do more of a kind of a 2018 in review in terms of actual games. This is going to be a legit focused podcast this time, which is wild for this channel. Probably never going to be seen again. But we're mainly just going to be running through for the next, I don't know, however long this takes, or how long we'll chat for, about 2018, about games of our favourite games. Seeing as we're both streamers, probably mentioned streaming a couple times. So if anyone else is streaming and interested in our points of view, then more than welcome to chip in. But I know this is not a stream, so comments, I guess. But yeah, 2018 felt kind of weird. I mean, it's my second year of streaming now for this one. How long have you been streaming, Melk?
I've been streaming for 4 years.
Oh, dang. I didn't even think it was that long. That's impressive. So,
It's been a ride.
yeah. I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about so far was I've definitely done a lot more traveling this year, particularly conventions. This year was my first convention outside of the UK, and I actually did 2 of them instead. And it's probably a good point to talk about because this is where me and Melkandor actually first met at PAX East back in April, and that's kind of weird to think about that. That was actually this year. I mean, this year's felt
I know
long.
It feels like it's been a lot longer than that. But yeah, it feels like April was like almost a world away.
Yeah, I mean, I keep hearing, I think Black Panther came out this year, which is one of the things people keep referring to. And I think that, I keep remembering that as coming out like, I don't know, a year or 2 ago now. But then again, my memory's shocking, so...
Yeah, no, it feels like, I almost don't, because that came out, I think, either early May or late April, and it's hard to believe that was out this year because it seems like such a long time ago. You're right, it feels like it was out like more than a year ago, but the year has gone by pretty fast, but it also has been, like you said, a long year. There's a lot of stuff that happened that accentuated this year. That's why I think it feels like a long year because there was so much that went on.
Yeah, for sure. So have you been to PAX before the April one?
No, actually, that was my first convention in 11 years.
Oh, dang. I think I remember you saying at the time, actually, yeah. I mean, I can compare the UK ones are definitely not as good than American ones. The sheer scale of American conventions is wild. I mean...
Well, here's a little bit of history on PAX. I remember when PAX was just a webcomic called Penny Arcade that was just starting out. And at the time, a friend of mine who were in college, we were all into college at the same time. So like Mike and Jerry, the guys who run Penny Arcade and who formed PAX, are about the same age as me, and we've all were in college at around the same time together. And that was when webcomics were just emerging, so there were a ton of webcomics out there. And I remember I got a chance to meet them at a very small convention in New Jersey. And I have a sketch from Gabe actually hanging up on my wall, or Jerry, and that's of Gabe from Penny Arcade. And it's one of my most prized possessions. So I mean, I remember when it was tiny, and to see what it's become now, it's become an industry con. And it's not just, like you saw how many developers were there, how many, hardware manufacturers were there. It was a huge like industry deal. Plus the amount of streamers were there. That was something that was never around when the webcomics started.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, they've got, how many do they do now? There's East, South, Prime. Do they do a West one?
Prime is considered the West one because it used to be just PAX and it was out in Seattle. Okay. Now they also do PAX Australia.
Oh, yeah.
and I think they're doing one in Europe. I'm not sure though.
I know there's an unplugged one as well, isn't there? I think that's
Yes.
like tabletop oriented.
That's tabletop. That's down in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the scale of it's what, because I also went to, I mean, I've been a few times now to Insomnia in England, and you can tell it's just the attraction of developers to do the conventions is nowhere near as big in England. I mean, obviously you've got a sheer number of people in America, but I think that's something that's England definitely misses out on, because I think the nearest good one, in quotes, is probably Gamescom in Germany.
Gamescom is huge, and it's becoming bigger and bigger because now you start to see a lot more developers and publishers do a lot of their big announcements at Gamescom as opposed to just at E3.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I mean, like, they've got TwitchCon as well next year, which is wild. One of the things I was saying whilst I was at the San Jose one was, oh man, this is so far. I wish they did one in Europe. And then 2 weeks later, or a week, I can't remember how long it was, they just up and announced Europe one.
That's going to be wild. I can't wait to see how that goes. That should be, well, I mean, that makes it so much more accessible for everybody in Europe, though, because it's less flying across the world, because it is literally you're flying across like half the planet to go to a convention, whereas now it's more like if you lived in the contiguous United States, you're just flying to a central location, or potentially, depending upon where it is, you could literally take the tunnel across and just go by land. Because, I mean, as far as I think about it, yeah, you take the tunnel to France and then shoot over to Germany that way, and you could technically drive there if you wanted to.
Yeah, true. But another thing I've seen is loads of American streamers, like the biggest streamers that I follow on Twitter, maybe. They're using it as their opportunity for their first time to go to Europe, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I definitely think it's gonna be. It's like I said. One of the things that's interesting about Twitch is it brings a lot of people together. So that divide that usually exists because of just the physical location of people now gets broken down because of the internet. So now you get to interact with people. Like, I mean, I can tune in and check you out whenever you're streaming or Slatelaive, and you guys are 6 hours ahead of me, generally speaking, 5 during the summer. And then, I get to another friend, like one of my clanmates from Destiny 2, he streams from Australia. He actually got up at 3:30 in the morning to raid with us when the raid released. That's insane.
That is
But I mean, that just talks about how just crazy it is to have, how you would think like gamers are typically antisocial, right? Like a lot of us are, have social awkward problems. Not everybody, but there's quite a few that do.
Yeah, I get that.
But it's the fact that this medium has really brought us together and like kind of, in a sense, I guess, helped us deal with the social awkwardness and social anxiety that we had. And especially streamers, a lot of people I know, I mean, there's a number of streamers who I won't mention that, I see them tweet out or talk about, how they're having a rough day and like the anxiety got the better of them. And it's something that I see, as somebody that grew up with a lot of social awkwardness. You would never know it by looking at me now, but I've had many years to work on this. So, I mean, but it's something I see, it's something that's out there. And it's really ironic because we spend a lot of our time in the public eye. So I think it's definitely something that not only breaks down walls, but is also therapeutic in a sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like when not to kind of simplify people who watch our streams, but I feel a lot of the time if I am having a crap day and I still stream, it's almost sometimes, whilst there are real people on the other side of it, I'm kind of know that I'm talking to a camera. So it kind of, whilst I get to have a real conversation with someone, it's the pressure isn't on to kind of, I don't know, look someone in the eye and say, oh, which I think's good and bad at the same time, because I don't know, it's an odd one.
Yeah, it's with a newer technology that is, listen, I mean, like, you're right. Obviously, we're talking to a camera, and it feels like, when I go into a stream and I see somebody that's talking to, you hear people go chat, and they talk at chat as if, chat is a person. There's a bunch of people usually. And it depends. Like, you can have a conversation with that, but technically, anybody that would walk into the room while we're streaming would just see us basically talking to our computer.
Yeah.
So it is kind of it's a very interesting medium. It's very different. Like, look at somebody like Tim, for instance, Tim the Tatman. Tim has a level of fame that most of us would never have. Without this medium, he wouldn't even have this level of fame. I mean, we're just normal gamers. We're just people that like to play games, right. And we decided we could share that, and now some of us get lucky enough, like Tim, to grow their brands and to get their name out in the public eye. I don't know how long this will last. I mean, I've heard people say, well, it's a new medium, it's going to die down. I think so eventually. Well, I don't think it'll die down as well as much as it'll normalize. But, I mean, for a lot of people, this is an opportunity for them to generate a whole new way of life, a whole new revenue, doing something that they love doing. And it's like for cosplayers, for instance, look at that. Cosplay years ago when I first started to go to conventions was something that you would just see at conventions. Now you have people like Danica Rockwood, for example, who do all these model shoots. She builds all her costumes and then she streams it. And then that stream only serves to amplify her presence in the cosplay community, and then she goes to conventions and things like that. You see that with a lot of cosplayers. It's really opened up a whole new, I mean, that's not something that I see going away. That's something that, like, look at Jessica Negri, for example. She's made a business out of cosplay, and it would be something that she would be hired to, like, a lot of times developer companies hire these cosplayers to come out to their booths, to work their booths when they're at conventions. So it's also an industry for modeling and things like that. So it's pretty unique what's out there now. I mean, you and I are doing a talk show, like essentially a talk show format or a podcast right now. That years ago we wouldn't be able to do this. So I mean, the medium is definitely coming somewhere. And I think this year, in more than any other year, we've seen a push to grow this industry and to make it something. I mean, Twitch with the affiliate program expanded a lot of things, and for the last year, we've been living in that program. I mean, we've been have people sub to us. We have streams of income that come in for that with the bits and the donations and whatnot. And we get to, over the last year, this is something that's really grown and become a real industry. Now it's to the point where I heard an interesting conversation. One of Kreb and mine's mutual friends said that she could see herself doing this for a long time, and it was interesting because I never really considered this something that I could be necessarily a long time thing, but then again, I could really, I've seen people with YouTube channels that have started out with YouTube. Look at iJustine or, Phil DeFranco. These people started on YouTube over 10 years ago, and they've made a career out of that. And in many cases, like Linus Media Groups, for example, Linus built his own media studio where it's a professional studio. They do reviews and everything else. He was just a dude that was making videos about tech when he began. So
right, yeah.
Who knows what could happen? Like, this is such a new industry that just to sit there and look at things and say, well, yeah, it's going to go away. That's not necessarily true.
I mean, hopefully. I mean, I don't think it'll ever go away. I think if it's going to die down, it's not necessarily going to die down, but more plateau. As most of the population know it, obviously then if people who are interested will get on it, log in, making accounts, follow everyone, or get involved. And then obviously I think it'll reach a level where the people who are interested are going to be on it, and then you've got the people who know about it but who aren't interested. That doesn't make any sense. But I think
no, it does. I mean, I understand what you're saying. There are people that are going to be interested that are going to get into it, and then there are people who aren't, and that's true. That's just with every other medium. Yeah,
and I just think it'll stay at like a consistent level. But this is like I imagine this will be like 5-10 years or so. I think we're good. I mean, YouTube still, with all its flaws, YouTube is still massive. And that's, I mean, how long has been YouTube up now? That's it.
YouTube's been up for over, 15 years?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And, I mean, a lot of people that get into this, now this is also a portfolio for people. Like, anybody that streams knows about audio equipment, knows about computers. They know about video production to an extent. Mm-hmm. And their voice work sometimes can now serve as a portfolio to getting an actual voice acting gig, or potentially getting like what you and I do. We could easily translate that into a shoutcast, where we start doing broadcasts for esports. Esports broadcasters can also very easily make the jump to professional sports broadcasting if they have that passion as well.
True, yeah. I mean, I think he actually just won an award for it, but Courage JD, he mainly a streamer, but he also does the casting stuff. And you can tell, like, it's as long as you know, I guess it's just about knowing your stuff with it and having this certain level of energy.
Oh, yeah. But once you know your stuff, like, look at Dr. Lubo. He does a lot of shoutcasting for things like that.
Oh, yeah, because I think he does stuff with Courage.
Yeah, they do stuff together all the time. And, I mean, they're friends. And that's something that you see a lot. And, like, you would think that all these guys that are kind of the quote-unquote upper-tier streamers, because these are guys that they go up and they have thousands upon thousands of people watching their streams when they stream. These are Twitch's top tier. Because there are tiers to the levels. I mean, you have your 100+ partners, then you have your 1,000+ partners. There's a world of difference. Mm-hmm. Somebody like Ninja going into a Twitch party is a lot different than somebody like, let's say, you or me. Obviously, we're affiliates, but I mean, it's different than somebody who's a like a 100+ streamer that has maybe a couple of hundred people in their chat. It's versus like Ninja. Obviously, there's a big difference there. But I think with that said, there is a lot of different talents that I've seen out there. Like, I know there's more than a few streamers I see that have gotten voice acting gigs, like I said, out of this. And again, like you said, with Courage, that shoutcasting becomes a real gig. Like, there's a lot of esports out there where they're always looking for new people to do commentary, to provide that. And if you can put out that energy, then yeah. I mean, right now, what we're doing, you and I could easily be doing one of those news roundtables, like talking about politics and stuff. Not that we would, but I'm just saying it's something that's out there. Or like hosting a late night radio show.
Yeah, I get you.
Not that late night. But I mean, yeah, I mean, streaming is definitely one of the things that I think would define 2018. And this media that we do between podcasts, YouTube, and streaming is something that is I mean, podcasting has been around for closer to 20 years now. I remember like in early 2000, like downloading a few podcasts and listening to them, on I would record them to CDs and listen to them in the car as I was driving places because that's when I had the most time. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, these mediums are going to continue to grow, I think. But, I mean, we could talk. I mean, you and I could sit here and talk about streaming this kind of media all day. But what do you think about, like, what else would you say? Like, since we're doing kind of like a year-end wrap-up, where else would you focus on for this year? What do you think some of the other big topics are?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know when this is going to go up, but what was the date? The 6th? Thursday the 6th? With the Game Awards. Did you actually watch the Game Awards?
I wasn't going to, and actually I thought I had missed them, but then I realized, oh no, that was just the pre-show, and then I watched the whole thing. I saw it from start to finish.
Right.
What did you think of them?
I mean, I think it's got to the point where a lot of people, including me, because I like to co-stream the events, just so it's to add a bit of excitement to it, but I feel like the VGAs, or the Game Awards, however you want to call it, people kind of watch it just for the new releases, or like the world premieres they've got. which I think is certainly like definitely true for me. But it's also it's I guess weird sense of validation when I pick the right game of the year. You know, the game that I think's going to be or should deserve game of the year. And when everyone else kind of agrees, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one. We made it. But obviously, everyone's got like a weird game of the year. And Red Dead seemed to almost steal everything. I think they were running jokes about Red Dead winning like best VR game just for the sake of it.
I have to say, I agree with you. They have become a vehicle for. I mean, I know most of the reasons people were watching it when I was actually in with my community in Discord, and we were watching it because there were of all the announcements that were coming out. Like, you know, there's just so many things, like the new Fortnite season, that new space game. What was that out? What was that game that's coming out by?
I want to say Outer World.
Yeah. The Outer Worlds.
That was a good one. I think that's mainly because it's Obsidian with the original Fallout creators. So already it's like, oh, okay, we kind of trust this one. Especially, I think a lot of people were really excited about that because of the recent Bethesda game.
Well, I think we'll come back to that in a few minutes.
But I'm gonna make this 2-part question because I have a feeling I know what one of the answers is. So go for the weird one. What's your favorite game that you've played or streamed this year? Not necessarily released this year, but that you've just flat out played this year.
I mean, the answer is going to be Destiny.
Yeah, that's why I went with that one first. I mean,
but I'll tell you why. I got Destiny 2 shortly after launch. I think I got it in November of last year. It was on sale for Black Friday, and it went on sale for $60 with the whole season pass. So I bought it because that was a good price for it. It was like the digital deluxe with season pass. They hadn't been selling that well on PC because a lot of people were kind of disappointed with the console release. And I bought it. I played it. I had fun. It felt really tight, but it was very lacking in content. Then Curse of Osiris came out. It was extremely disappointing, and I just stopped playing Destiny. Then it cut up to right before Warmind came out. I was watching somebody prepping for Warmind, and I decided, hey, when Warmind comes out, I'll check it out, see if it's good. And I was going into it with the expectation of it being exactly like Osiris, like really short, you're done in an hour, put the game down for a couple more months. No, I got caught into Warmind, and of course, since between Osiris and Warmind, Bungie had done they had flown a bunch of community content creators and gamers out to their headquarters to kind of have a powwow, sort of like Ubisoft did with The Division, to see what they could do to fix the game and make it more enjoyable for the players.
Right.
And after that, they just kept giving us these little drips and drabs of content because they were working their way up to Forsaken, which was going to change the game. And boy, did it ever. Forsaken is probably one of the best expansions to any game I have played in a long time. And you're talking to somebody that has played through World of Warcraft since it was in vanilla, who has been with major expansions. And, of course, also with Final Fantasy XIV, I played Heavensward. Then when Stormblood came out, I played through that. And this is probably one of the most enjoyable expansions I have ever played for any game. So getting into it, Forsaken had a much better story. It tied together everything from Destiny 1 into Destiny 2 and ended up taking Bungie from a bunch of people that looked like they didn't really know how to write a story that meshed well to all of a sudden having woven this epic masterpiece, because now you could see where things linked up from the first game and how they link up in the second game, and we're still uncovering that. And even though they say with the new DLC that came out, which is the Black Armory, they say, well, it's not really tied together, but we know it will eventually tie into the whole mythology of the Destiny lore, and I'm excited. I mean, I've been having a lot of fun with it. It is a grindy game, but it's supposed to be a grindy game. It's one of those games that now that they have random rolls, you're going to log in, you're going to farm for the gear you want with the right stats you want for the weapons that you have to build your character to the ultimate way. And that's what I expect. It's like Diablo 3, because at the core, all of these games are like Diablo 3, and that's why I think it's one of the best expansions I've ever played.
Okay. I mean, I've heard you talk about Destiny 2 for a long time. And I highly advise anyone who's listening to this to go to... Obviously, Melk's stuff's going to be in the description, his YouTube and Twitch. But honestly, if you have any Destiny 2 questions, just go over to his channel. He'll talk about it for about 48 hours. I mean... I agree with everything you've said. My just main gripe with Destiny 2 was, as someone who got the season pass, it was like, after the disappointment of Osiris, I felt like I only got one kind of good expansion out of it, and then it was back to paywall. But I think that's been covered by nearly everyone on the planet with Destiny 2 by now.
Yeah, and there were definitely major issues with Destiny. Like last December with the whole XP scandal where they were what do you call it?
I remember that.
They had that hidden XP thing where they nerfed the XP you gained, and then it got exposed on Reddit, and that was just after the news broke with Star Wars Battlefront 2, which also defined all of 2018 in terms of how the gaming culture has reacted to just monetization and AAA studios releasing products. I mean, there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, I mean, but companies getting sued, and I mean, yeah, it's an odd one. It's way over my head, to be honest with you. But okay, so we got that one out of the way because I knew you were gonna say Destiny. But what's your favorite game that's come out this year? Like, full game.
Let me think on that for a few minutes. Honestly, I don't even have to think about it that long. One game that had came out this year that I was not expecting to come out this year, and I wasn't even expecting it at all, was Magic the Gathering Arena.
Okay.
Now, and I'll tell you exactly why. For years, the only real game out there to play any sort of card game on the internet was Hearthstone.
Right.
And I always felt that Hearthstone was very limited in terms of what you could, like, it seemed like everybody was using the same meta. You would always see the same decks. And I always felt like it was lacking the mechanics of the number one, the original. The only card game that I ever enjoyed was Magic the Gathering. And Magic just had you're talking about a game that is now 25 years old almost, and that has defined what the collectible card and the trading card game was like. And now that it's actually in a good form on the PC, like, I love going into Magic Arena and playing Magic together. You know, I love playing it. I could stream it. I could talk to people. I know when people are going to, like, I watch, like, if you've ever seen me stream, because streaming that for me is actually something that I really love doing. It's something I just feel passionate about. Like, I have boxes and boxes of Magic the Gathering cards in this house. And there were times where I've had all of the Power 9, which, let me tell you, I sold them like 10 years ago to pay for rent. If I sold them today, I could literally put a down payment on a house. And in certain parts of the United States, I could actually full out buy a house with just two of the cards.
Oh my God.
I mean, Magic is it's in such a weird place right now because the online portion of it is taking off, and I see a lot of people playing it from time to time. Like, a lot of streamers will play their main game, but then you'll see them play something like Hearthstone or Magic or something on the side because it's something that you can jump into. You know, you want to have an easy stream because it's not hard to stream Magic. Like, there's not a lot of focus. You're literally looking at a screen, so you can spend a lot more time with your audience. because you're waiting for your opponent to go half the time. So, I mean, that's literally one of the games that's almost designed to do that. And I just love it because, like, it's Magic, and it really is Magic with a really great representation. And, I know the cards. I every card that's in Magic Arena is printed in like all of the sets that are there, the whole sets that are available in the stores. And but we won't get into the new Ultimate. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on with Masters and with Magic, and they have the set called Ultimate Masters right now. People are losing their minds because of it. It's hilarious a little bit. It's also a little bit scary for anybody that's invested in some of these cards and has watched the prices dip a bit, because now some of these ones that were quote unquote not going to be reprinted have all of a sudden been reprinted. So we'll see. But it's a limited run. It's not going to do too much to the value. Eventually the values will recover and people will still have the money that they invested into the cards to be safe. But that's my opinion on it. But I do know that industry pretty well.
Okay.
But that's like my favorite game that released in 2018. And I was hoping to be able to say other games, but one of the games that I was kind of rooting for in the background ended up being a dumpster fire. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay. I think I might know what you mean. That's such a good pick. I would have never Magic would have never come to the front of my mind, but you're right in saying people I follow on Twitch, every now and again I'll check in and they'll be playing Magic. I mean, I'm not great at Magic, but I've played a bit, so it's always cool to see. And I completely forget that that's a new thing. I've always kind of just assumed that had been around for ages.
Well, there's other card games that have been around for a long time too. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, I never thought would have the staying power that it did.
Oh yeah,
but Yu-Gi-Oh is still second to Magic. So is Pokemon, the card game. But I don't ever see them putting a Pokemon card game really up there, because they just still have such tremendous success with every single Pokemon game they release.
There is actually
a
Pokemon trading card game that you can get online. Yeah, I actually, not really embarrassingly, but I spent a lot of time at uni on it. Just because I think it was when Sun and Moon came out. And I was super disappointed, but I still wanted a Pokemon fix, so I got really into the online game. And the UI's a bit not great, but it actually holds up pretty well. Like you can sink some hours into that.
Oh, sure. I mean, Magic had the same kind of thing for a long time. They had a number of different formats where you could play the cards that you had. You could enter in your cards, but this is the first true full-on UI computer-only game. So it's pretty cool. I was surprised. I would not be surprised to see Yu-Gi-Oh go full into that as well. There are a couple other games I'd like to see do that. The only other card game, so right now, the main card games that I see out there, as far as this goes, there's really only 4 that I've seen with any sort of popularity. Hearthstone, obviously, Magic the Gathering has become a thing. Mm-hmm. For sure, I'd say Gwent. Oh yeah, that's a big one. And then another one is actually Slay the Spire. That's been big amongst the indie crew. And I've seen a lot of people streaming Slay the Spire. Mm-hmm. So those are there's definitely games that are out there that like that. The card game market online is actually a pretty good one. And ironically, or I should say not ironically, those are the only one that can get away with the format that they have without getting investigated as loot boxes, because honestly, they are loot box the game. But technically speaking, since they are based on an actual card game.
Yeah, I guess so. It's easy to overlook because it's been around for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I don't know what I've been trying to think about it all day, about what I would say was my favorite game to play this year. And I only really thought about it in the terms of how one of the ones that filled a big hole for me was the Yakuza series. In terms of playing it, Yakuza Kiwami 1 mainly because that's the one I've completed on stream. And essentially, if anyone's never checked any of those out, I highly advise starting at 0 and then going through the series in order or chronological order in terms of the actual game's timeline. It'll fill a hole that there's no GTA at the minute. I mean, obviously GTA 5 Online's big, but it kind of serves as a more mature, up-to-date, amazing graphics, amazing story GTA. And technically Kiwami 2, I don't know when it released originally over in the East, but Kiwami 2 released in the West this year, and that's, I think going forward, those are really good examples of great writing in really focused but very good looking worlds. And I know Sega's kind of having they're rebounding a bit, especially with that series and how big that seems to have gotten over in the West again. But
yeah, the Yakuza series I've been watching you stream it, but I've seen a few other people streaming it, and I know they're very well done, and I've enjoyed watching. Every time I've come across the Yakuza stream, I've always enjoyed it.
I mean, it's just. Oh wait, have you cut out? Sorry, you cut out for me for a sec. 'Cause that's gonna sound really weird on the video. It's fine, but it's just solid pumping action, and that's why I mean, like my game of the year that released this year was God of War for the same reason. Like it's, for someone who kind of worries about how long they're taking with the playthrough, which is why Red Dead Redemption for me didn't work too well on stream. The quick pace of it means that, whenever someone might come in and check in, there's usually going to be something exciting going on. And both those games kind of, if you want to do side stuff, you can, but apart from that, it will throw you straight through the story with very few breaks. I mean, God of War's a whole different kettle of fish, purely for the combat was insane. The various abilities you can get throughout, and I mean the storyline itself and the ending. Not just obviously say any details, but it's well worth a look. And mixing that in with Norse mythology was wild. Because when I was a kid playing Age of Mythology, I used to be super into that Norse stuff. So that basically just ticked all the boxes that I didn't even really need ticking. But yeah, it just did it super well, and I know they're definitely going to be doing a sequel for it. They'd be mad not to at this stage of the game.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that was hands down probably one of the best single releases. Like I can honestly say that as far as overall, I think that God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 were the two standout games that released this year for sure.
Mm-hmm. Although there was Spider-Man, though. I heard a lot of good things about people playing Spider-Man.
I think Spider-Man was a solid game, and I think it was really a good game. And I would say it's definitely in the top 5 of games that released this year. But I still don't think it approached the sheer level that God of War or really Red Dead Redemption 2 actually achieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in the award show, God of War, I don't know if Spider-Man won anything, actually. I know it did at the Gamers' Choice Awards, but I hadn't really been following that at all.
I don't really. The Gamers' Choice Awards just seems like network TV trying to cash in on the video game phenomenon that is 2018.
Yeah, I get that. And one thing I did want to ask you, I've been very interested to hear ever since you mentioned it not too long ago. What were your greatest complete shitfests of 2018, to put it like that?
Well, let's start out with the whole loot box monetization controversy that it rose at the end of 2017 with Battlefield, Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
And then that literally just steamrolled the whole year, because anytime a AAA studio did anything that was questionable, They literally got like shut down and downvoted. And then but it really kind of seemed to be stemming off until BlizzCon. BlizzCon was the first real big shitfest of this year. Excuse my language, but that's the only way to describe it. Like they did so many things wrong. See, the main problem with BlizzCon isn't that it's just that this year's BlizzCon overall felt like more of an educational course, because I watched the whole thing and all of their panels on sound production and development and everything else were fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. They did a fantastic bang-up job with that, answering questions. Even their lore writing panels were really fantastic. It's when they got to their announcements that there was not... I mean, aside from a Warcraft 3 remaster, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm super into that.
I like even their World of Warcraft like upcoming stuff wasn't really that big. I mean, the second thing I would say was probably the highest anticipated was the introduction of Ashe to Overwatch.
Yeah.
But by far and away, the only thing that BlizzCon 2018 will be remembered for was what, you don't have a phone? Yeah. Is literally they totally did not plan for that reaction, and I think they're really at this point with the reaction that E3 that EA got at E3 with Command and Conquer's Rivals. Yeah. They really should have anticipated this and had done something like every other company did, like Bethesda. Now, well, I'll get to them in a second, but Bethesda had a really great E3 presentation, and the only reason nobody bitched about Elder Scrolls Blade for the mobile was because they did a trailer for Elder Scrolls 6.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And it was just a teaser, and it was just a title teaser with a little bit of background. But if Blizzard had only done the same thing with Diablo 4 and said, look, we're really excited about Diablo Immortal. We're working on this. We're really proud of it. But also coming on the horizon, as we said to you guys in the past, Diablo 4 is in development. The whole situation would have been a completely different thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But because they did it the way they did it, that became the first big dumpster fire of 2018. But the second one came about a week and a half later when Fallout 76 released, and I think Blizzard sent them like a thank you card for taking the heat off of them for a few days, because holy hell, Fallout 76 has been one disaster after another disaster. Now I hear rumors that they might be going free to play.
What? Really?
Oh, now see, that's a whole can of worms, because if they go free to play, everybody that paid a lot of money for that game is going to be super pissed. So that's just a rumor right now. I'm still sending out feelers to see what the level of actuality of that becoming a thing is. Now, I don't know that in itself could be huge, but they have had one thing after another. Like first it was the game was buggy, and that was bad enough. Then it was that whole fiasco with the bags and false advertising. Then last week they had a security breach where it was their own security. They breached themselves by not doing proper web development, which is exactly what happened. And they leaked out people's information to the public. Now, granted, it was only over a span of 45 minutes, and it was only limited to between 64 and 100 customers. But when I say only, that's downplaying it. I'm really going to say it should never have happened. There's no excuse for that. And that is still a serious violation of security, that there could still be legal ramifications for the company resulting in that. So, yeah, that's a big deal. And now if what they're saying about potentially bringing Fallout 76 free to play, I think the rest of their player base that actually paid money for the game will walk away from it, because now they're just super pissed and they're going to feel shafted. Because, hey, if I paid $60 for a game that was buggy as it is, now I'm being told, well, it's going to go free to play, I'm done.
Yeah.
Give me my money back. I'm done, But that's the other thing, their whole launcher and their whole, well, if you downloaded the game, you're not eligible for a refund. That's also shady, and that's being looked into. So I do think there's going to be a rocky road for Bethesda in the future. I don't think the customer confidence is there anymore.
No.
And their abilities to produce quality games. I think that the other studios that their parent company owns, like ID Software, I think id will have a phenomenal release with
Is it Rage 2 they're doing? Or is
with
that
Doom.
else?
Well, Doom Eternal,
Oh,
and somebody else
yeah.
is doing Rage 2. But I think those two are really where they're going to make their money, because Doom Eternal, if the last Doom is any indication, Doom Eternal is just going to be sick. And I can't wait to see what Doom Eternal is going to be. I will get that. I will play that. That's one of my 2019 most anticipated games. But
It is id. It's id with Avalanche who are doing Rage. I remember it being. I think,
Right.
yeah, Avalanche are helping them out a lot. I don't know what Avalanche have done, actually.
Right.
But, they did Just Cause and Manbacks. So that makes sense, given the aesthetic of the game.
absolutely.
For sure. But, I mean, you mentioned it then, and I was going to talk about it at some point. So, most anticipated games, or things you're looking forward to in the entirety of the gaming world for 2019.
Okay, so first I'm going to deal with the minor stuff. So let's talk expansions.
Okay.
There's one expansion on the horizon that I'm really excited for, and that is the new Shadow Warrior thing coming out for Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
Where you finally get to play as the Warrior of Darkness. It's a whole new class. Final Fantasy XIV has never disappointed me in terms of game design, dungeon design, story. It's probably one of the best stories out there. I mean, you actually feel like your character is important. Your character is like the main focus of the story, which is something that a lot of MMOs don't do. World of Warcraft never really was good on the story front as far as making your character feel important. You were always somebody in the background. In Final Fantasy XIV, you are like the main character. Like, they look to you for guidance.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. And the other one I would say is, now going back to main games, obviously Doom Eternal is going to be one of the big ones. Another one for me is going to be Rage 2, because both of those look phenomenal, and I like that high-octane gaming.
Yeah.
One of the other ones that I'm going to, and I'm cautiously optimistic for it, but everything I've been hearing so far is good, is Anthem. That's probably the three that really will define my gaming in 2019. I was gonna say The Division 2, but I have to be honest. I've kind of been very turned off by Ubisoft in the last couple of weeks. They took a stance where they don't see that there's anything wrong with loot boxes. I also don't like how when they release a game now, it's like, well, you have a choice between like 6 different versions of the game, and it's standard, then there's a deluxe, then there's a collector's, then there's a collector's gold, then there's like a platinum edition, and then there's we'll give you everything, including a 6-foot statue that they have. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, and another one I'll add on to there is Devil May Cry 5.
Okay.
But I think that's out already.
Is
That
it?
might be
I think
out
the demo's out.
So I'm not
I don't know if the actual main
The demo
game's
might
out.
be out.
I saw someone tweet about
Right.
the demo last night. So
Okay, so
it's probably
that may be coming out at early first quarter of 2019. But
Yeah.
that's it for me. What about for you? What's big on the horizon for you?
well, I mean, this year I had a big resurgence for From Software games. So I got Dark Souls 3. I played Dark Souls 1 when it came out at a friend's house, and I played Dark Souls 3 when it came out and finished it. But this year, when a few of my friends were like, "Oh, if I get the game, like play it together and stuff," so I've ended up clocking like 150 hours this year in Dark Souls 3. Went back, re-streamed the whole of Dark Souls 2, which the less said about Dark Souls 2, in my opinion, the better. So, ever since seeing the teaser, obviously not knowing what it was at the time, but last year's Game Awards for Sekiro, which I can't remember when it's coming out, but after playing games like Nioh and Origami, I just really like that setting. So I think FromSoft, now that Miyazaki's back at the helm for that, and after working latest on Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, I think that's going to be great. I think it's done by Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima. But that's mainly because it's a similar kind of aesthetic. So I've basically become a weeb for samurai, great combo, great combat, fighting action games. And there was another one that I completely forgot about. So that's great as well. Dang. I am interested to see what Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be like. Because obviously, more so to see what everyone else thinks of it after waiting for so long. That's more a... I want to see... I hate to say it, but I'm going to be very interested to see if it's a disappointment. And I don't know if I'm too cynical about that. Just because it's been so long. But I'm sure the nostalgia factor will carry that game through no matter what, really.
Well, the thing about Kingdom Hearts is I don't think that, like, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a funny story about Kingdom Hearts never has to worry about complex puzzles or like super like complex gameplay. I remember somebody a long time ago when Kingdom Hearts 2 released, they released this giant strategy guide that was like 2 inches thick.
Okay.
Or like 20 centimeters thick. And like 10 centimeters thick. It was thick.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there looking at it and I was like, why do you need that? Because everything in the game is just press the X button.
Yeah.
And my buddy Kurt, who writes for Hardcore Gaming 101 and has published a number of books on the history of video games, it was literally he was standing behind me. He goes, as we're walking to the park, and he goes, just press X, just press it. I assure you, if you just press the X button, you'll get through the game. You don't need a strategy guide from Brady Games telling you how to play the game. Just press X and keep pressing X. And to me, the Kingdom Hearts games were a little bit too, I think. It felt like the fairy tale love story between Disney and Final Fantasy, which it was.
Yeah.
And I think that they're great games. I think that it'll do well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested to see if it'll live up to the hype. That's like the other one. Like I'll tell you this after we'll go into this after. This is a separate subject, but
okay.
We'll go into the realm of games that we would love to see, but probably won't ever happen.
Okay.
So. There's 2. It's not just Star Citizen. There's 2.
I mean, I've got. This has plagued me ever since E3. The one game that I know is never going to come out, but they teased it so hard, and I hate EA for never making Skate 4, and that's it. I'm just gonna cry about that every day for the rest of my life.
You're not the only one. I've heard many people lament that there is no Skate 4. But I'll tell you the other one. This one comes out at Square Enix, actually. Final Fantasy VII Remaster.
Oh, yeah.
They have been teasing that for years. They've been teasing that for almost as long as they've been teasing about Star Citizen. And at least we have something playable in Star Citizen. I have yet to see anything come out. Final Fantasy VII is going to come out, and nobody's going to be able to play it because it's going to be that much of an improvement.
But I'm pretty sure E3 2017 they showed something, and I was fully expecting something from this E3 for that game. But
Nope.
Yeah, and I was pretty confused because I think the whole of the E3 they showed like 3 or 4 different Kingdom Hearts trailers, and then nothing about Final Fantasy VII. And I would have thought that like if they'd have done the kind of the same as Bethesda, just keep it in everyone's mind, show like whatever animation they've got going right now. They could just, I don't know. Cloud could be in the Fortnite battle bus and just say Final Fantasy VII after it, and that'll probably be good enough with a lot of people. Maybe not Krev, I think Krev loves Final Fantasy VII, right? But
Final Fantasy VII, I think, is hands down Krev's favorite game.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it sounds like it. But yeah, that was weird. But do you think that'll come out in the next 2 years?
I think it will. I think that there's some internal stuff going on over at Square Enix right now. So it's probably been a project that's been moved to the back burner. I know that there was some turmoil on the Final Fantasy 15 development team. So I don't know exactly what's going to go on with the game, with the franchise. I know that each of the teams is like each of the Final Fantasy games is compartmentalized to their own dev team. So, for instance, the Final Fantasy 14 team only works on Final Fantasy 14.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, like, Yoshi P is not involved in any of the other Final Fantasies.
Right, I get you.
But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that they do release that because that was one. Now, my favorite Final Fantasy, because of the story, will always be Final Fantasy VI. Because if you've ever played Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy III in the U.S., Kefka's one of the best villains that they've ever released, and as probably one of my favorite villains in all of video games. If you've never played 6, I will highly recommend at least looking up some stuff on Kefka as a villain. And then I will say this, because I know you know who Handsome Jack is for sure. Handsome Jack and Kefka definitely rank up there as my favorite video game villains of all time. Hands down.
I mean, yeah. That's another one as well. I kind of expected a Borderlands 3 something or other. That never came about.
I've heard rumors and I've seen some gameplay that I would say is highly, well, I don't want to say highly, but I say it's somewhat questionable because I don't know. We haven't heard anything really officially about it too much other than that it's in the works. But I do hope to see some more about, I would say if anything was going to happen with Borderlands 3, there's only one other opportunity that they can announce it where it would make an impact, and that would be during the Super Bowl. Because that's like the only other time that I would expect anybody to announce anything at this point. But other than that, I would say, honestly, 2020 is where I would expect to see a Borderlands 3 release. I would also probably say, 2020 would be the time that we would hopefully this year in 2019 we'll hear about the Final Fantasy VII remaster, because I think that is going to be a gold mine for Square Enix, because they're going to release that. There has now been enough time passed since the original game release. I think it's over 20 years now, that if they release this, a whole new generation will get exposed to that amazing story and all those characters with amazing graphics. Now imagine what that game will look like with the graphics of today.
Yep.
I mean, just be absolutely phenomenal.
I agree. One more thing that I've not necessarily looking forward to, but I think it's worth mentioning. Do you reckon we're going to get at E3? Well, actually, saying that, I don't think Sony are doing E3s anymore. They're sticking to their PlayStation experience. But do you think PS5 announcement?
I think PS5 announcement is almost a definite guarantee. I mean, we know that Microsoft is going to announce a new console. We already know that they're planning on doing a streaming console for the most part. So I would say probably. I would also say, I don't think we're going to get anything new from Nintendo. The Wii is not the Wii. I'm sorry.
The Switch.
The biggest thing since the Wii, the Switch, is because the Wii U was kind of a failure, but the Switch has been another knockout of the park success for them. I really want to say that Nintendo's probably going to not announce anything, so I think, yes, Sony's going to have probably the biggest hardware announcement, but I think this time Microsoft is going to be a little bit ahead of them.
Okay.
I think Microsoft, with the fact that they did buy Obsidian Entertainment.
True.
So they own that, and they own a number of other good studios that they'll have the exclusives that they need to kind of stand up to Sony this time around. Because there's no denying that Sony won the last round of the console wars.
Oh, for sure.
Which is hilarious when you think about it, because the actual winner is always Nintendo because of their portable units. Like, Nintendo cannot be touched by Microsoft or Sony. But Nintendo's just kind of on another level. Like they are kind of the Apple of the video game industry. Like Apple is kind of its own thing. Nintendo is really its own thing too. I mean, they have such high standards, and they do, and such quality standards for most of their games that you rarely see something come out that's absolute garbage on a Nintendo system.
Yeah, well, apart from Smash, I'm laughing actually.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, they've got like because it's just everything they do is exclusive, so they've got their weird bubble around them. I don't think they'll ever have to worry about Sony or Xbox stepping on their turf.
No. I mean, the irony is, I remember when the big console war was always between Nintendo and Sega. That was a much closer, I would say, race to be number one.
Okay.
And then when Sony and really that was when Sony PlayStation came out, that kind of spelled the end of Sega. And then when Microsoft sent into it, both the PlayStation and the Xbox killed the Dreamcast. And because the Dreamcast was far more popular in Japan than it ever was in the United States. And it's a shame because it was a fantastic system.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know, and it has been between Sony and really Xbox for a long time. Because like I said, Nintendo's consoles, like the Dreamcast was a good console that just didn't have a ton of support for it. So it really kind of took a third place, but it didn't matter because they had the DS, and the DS was always number one because everybody had a DS. You could have two consoles and you would always have a Nintendo product on you that was playing Nintendo games. Mm-hmm. And the Switch is just the perfect thing. You can play it on the TV, but you can put it in your pocket, or you can put it in your backpack and take it with you.
Maybe you've got those cargo
I don't want to put my
shots.
Switch. I mean, if you're really big pants, maybe, but I'm talking clown pants here. But like, if you were wearing like big pants, but it's a portable system. Nintendo has never failed with a portable system, with one exception, and that was the Virtual Boy, which I affectionately nicknamed the Migraine Maker.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I've always had a Nintendo one on hand just for Pokemon. So the fact that I can play Zelda on this one as well is, I mean, that's what I did on the DS as well. I played Zelda, but yeah. I mean, 2018's been a weird one because I think it's been so dominated by Fortnite. So I think this coming year, there'll be more room for other games to try and make a breakthrough now that Fortnite's established. I think most games will try, especially the multiplayer ones, whatever's been planned for multiplayer ones. I think it's going to be about trying to, especially for streamers, shift everyone's focus onto new stuff as people get more bored of watching Fortnite.
One thing I got to say, I think we're just about to see a brand new kind of war go on. And that's going to be between Steam and Epic.
Oh, yeah.
Epic just launched their online store within the past week, and they're going to be paying out more to their developers. So their developers are getting around 12% more for putting on for publishing through Epic. And of course, if you're a developer and you use the Unreal Engine, because you're releasing on the Epic store, they're waiving that fee for you, which is a huge thing.
Oh, dang.
So you're going to see more indie developers, I think, go towards Epic Games. And I think that we're going to see a real competition for Steam finally. Not that Steam is bad and not that I'm rooting for one over the other, but it'll be interesting to see how that shifts, because that paradigm will also, like EA with Origin and Microsoft, they're trying to compete in that area with Microsoft's Microsoft Store and EA's Origin, their Premier Access program and their Access. Now they're going to have to compete with the big dogs, and like Steam is not going anywhere. But I think the competition between Steam and Epic will only benefit gamers in the long run. I think it'll only benefit us and developers. I think that'll be something. The one thing I think we have to address before we would wrap up anything is we really have to address the state of games and basically the state of gamers, because I think we've seen a lot more in terms of outrage culture leaking into the game or bit like flooding into the game industry now this year more than we ever have before. So we're seeing a lot more mainstream outrage drop into games, into the gaming industry. And I mean, like, I think that there are some points where, like, yes, with the loot box thing with Star Wars Battlefront 2, yes, that was a justifiable thing. Like, enough is enough. We don't like this anymore. And yes, something needed to be done about loot boxes. But I think that people are now trying to just make headlines for their YouTube channels by putting out, outrage over every little thing that's going on. I think that's becoming a problem.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I want to know what...
Yeah, I mean, especially with one of the things with Fallout 76, it seems that people who aren't really invested or who might not have ever played it themselves try and just go out of their way to be angry about it. And especially on Twitter, attack people, not necessarily attack, but, be negative to people who are actually enjoying the game. Just to try and... Everyone seems to be about recognition in a really negative way this year, more than I've noticed previously. I don't know whether it's because I've been more dialed into social media because of streaming. But...
I agree with you.
But on the other hand as well, there has been, every year that streaming gets bigger, there's more positive people, and the amount of money people are raising for charities is nuts now through streaming, so that's dope. But I think hopefully the wave of negativity and commenting on every single one of Epic's Fortnite posts asking for likes, I'm ready for that to be done because it's so annoying.
I think I agree with you. And one thing I'll say is I agree with you. Like the negativity in gaming is only like all of these people crying out for this. Really, one thing it does is it undermines because the media. First of all, I want to also comment on the games media now. The journalists now coming out and attacking the gamers and calling us things like entitled and things like that is a blanket statement that is, I think, a gross exaggeration. Okay. And I think video game journalists like Kotaku and really like GameSpot and all of those places, they need Rock Paper Shotgun's another one that's been doing it. Need to really realize that coming out and lashing out at your audience is not the thing to do. Because they're just as toxic. They're being just as toxic as they're accusing the gamers of being. One for one. And you don't want to really bite the hand that feeds you because if we didn't go to their sites, they don't have jobs. So
yeah, true.
That's, their websites and their YouTube channels rely on views. If people aren't going there, they're just not going to have the clout to say to a company, hey, look at this is our look at our views, look at what we generate, look at our page views. If they don't have those figures there, they're not going to exist. And those people, we have to realize that as a gaming culture, we need to kind of set an example because there are so many other positive things that we do. Like you said, I watched Guardian Con in a span of 2 weeks raise over $3 million for St. Jude's. That is ridiculous. I mean, that is in and of itself an amazing thing. And you had the streamers that you expected to make large chunks of change, like Professor Broman, King Gathalion, Ninja, Tim, and Dr. Lupo. They all raised a tremendous amount of money on their own. And I've seen Dr. Lupo do nothing but like once a month work with St. Jude's to make as much money as he possibly can for them. And seeing people like that, seeing people, other streamers like Krev, who has done a number of fundraisers this year.
For sure.
And there's a number of, I'll throw out a name like Fluffy Pancake, who does a hunger stream. She has a charity. She works with a charity that fights hunger. You have a number of streamers that are doing so much good with what they have. And gamers have always been willing to shell out money for a good cause. And this medium gives us such a tremendous ability to do that, that I think that's something that we really should be focusing on instead of the negatives. Like, yes, the AAA companies, they're corporations, they're going to do shady things. And yes, we need to continue to call them out on it, because it ultimately, if they provide us with the products that we definitely, that are going to not always aim for our wallet, but aim for, look, they have to make money. And I need to say this because this is something that has to be said. Corporations need to make money because they have to pay their dev teams. They have to do that. It's not the devs you should ever be upset with. It's the people at the top, like the Andrew Wilsons of EA.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
These are the people that are actually taking advantage of that. Like when you had that guy, Patrick Soderlund, who was EA's director of products, right? They paid him $40 million to stay there extra, and he left anyway. That money should have easily been going to the devs who had been slaving away on games. Like, I don't care I don't care if EA makes bad calls at the top. What I care about is those executives should not be making the same amount of that all that money when the people that are actually breaking their backs, like the devs at DICE, like the devs at these other places, that are actually the guys that are sitting there behind a cubicle programming, they should be making more money than they are making. And you have to remember that it's just the corporation. Like, I know EA just had another scandal where they were making fun of everybody at their corporate party that had sent bad reviews of Battlefield 5. The truth is that all comes from their dumb PR department. And then, of course, that got leaked out. And what did their stock do? Continued to plummet. Because I think we're reaching a point where gamers should be able to speak directly to shareholders and say, listen, this is the kind of things we want. This is the kind of stuff that we're looking for in games. And if you want to make a live service, that's fine, but do it the right way. Like, give it to us for free. We'll pay for the content if we like the game. And if we like the game, we'll pay a lot more for it than you're thinking we will. And you'll make a lot more money in the long run. Because I don't know about you, but if you look at a company like Digital Extremes that puts the game out for free, every time they release a Prime pack, which is once every 3 months, they make $80 per pack on that. And if you wanted that, now there are 17 million people that play that game. If even 1 million people pay $80 for a Prime pack, that's a lot of money, and that's 4 times a year. Not to mention all the cosmetics and the shaders that people will be willing to buy for that game.
Damn.
Like think about if Destiny released for free. If Destiny 3 came out as a free service, with Bungie deciding, hey, we're gonna do that. We're gonna release a bunch of stuff, a couple of times a year that you guys can then choose to buy or not. You could earn it in game. People would go nuts. They would love Bungie. Bungie would be the new heroes, and that a lot of that goes the same. Like, the same thing would happen with BioWare. The same thing could happen at EA. It's a matter of getting the right executives, the right people at top in these companies, and making the right pitches to their investors to get them all on board with this. I mean, the more we have people out there trying to offer solutions instead of shaking our fists at these people, the more we have a better chance of having an actual dialogue where something meaningful can change.
I mean, that's a great example why Epic's doing good things. I mean, you can slate Fortnite as much as you want, but I think was the percentage 88% to developers. I think that was like the base figure. But stuff like that, it's cool. I mean, because obviously some of the games that have caught my eye, games now on Epic, like the Supergiants game Hades, is one of the first ones on Epic Store. And it's
right, doesn't that look great?
And I mean, I didn't even have to see what the game was as soon as I saw the name, because of Transistor being one of my favorite games. It's stuff like that. It's cool. It's cool to see the names of developers being able to keep making games, because, like a platform that Epic's got all the money in the world, but they're doing something decent with it instead of, hunkering down and just doing nothing but Fortnite.
I agree with you 100%, and I can't wait to see what like in terms of Epic. I'm expecting some pretty big things from them in 2019, not just with Fortnite, but like I said, with their store And with that opening up a bunch of possibilities, I think that we're going to see a bit of a new world in 2019 in terms of the gaming industry. I think we're going to be going in a new direction. And if I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a change in the gaming culture, both in terms of the developers and in terms of gamers. And I think maybe if we started working more together, I think we'll definitely have a lot more games that we like. And I mean, look, I'm not going to take anything away from it. There were a ton of awesome games out this year. Like, there were the big ones that obviously the media and even, we as gamers focused on, but there were still a ton of amazing games that came out this year. So we are in a good time for games, but I just think we need to work on the communication between the industry and us, because as streamers, we're actually free marketing for all of these publishers.
Oh, yeah.
So, if we get on board, if we get on board with them and we start talking to them, regardless of whether or not they're sponsoring us or whatnot, if we can help bridge that gap between the publishers, us, and then their target audience, I mean, I think everybody will be in a better place. That's just me. I'm being positive for once. So,
I know. I mean, I think being positive about stuff's probably a good place to wrap it up there.
I agree with you 100%, my friend.
Yeah. So, anyone who's managed to get through this far, the podcast, appreciate it. Obviously, if you want to hear Melk talk a lot more about, because I know you do a weekly roundup on your Twitch channel, right?
Yep, every Sunday I do what's called the Weekly Take, and we talk about different things. Usually, I give a brief wrap up of the news, and then some of my just kind of editorials for the week. Think of it like the last week, today with John Oliver, except I'm nowhere near as funny as John Oliver, but I still managed to provide enough entertainment to keep you there for the half hour.
Yeah, so that's over at twitch.tv/Melkandor. And obviously you've got YouTube as well. I'll put them both down below. So if anyone's watching this, wants to check it out, I 100% urge you to do so, because he's cool. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in a call with him right now, but I highly advise. And obviously, seeing it's December, if you guys are celebrating Christmas or any kind of holiday, I hope it's good. Hope you enjoy yourselves. Be safe. Don't drink too much eggnog. Or maybe do. I don't go wild. It's up to you. I can't say what you should do. But any closing words for us, Melk?
I wish everybody a happy holidays, and I want to thank you for having me on. Of course, if you are not already following Slate on YouTube, make sure to check out the YouTube channel that this will be published on, which is Slatelaive, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And also make sure you check out twitch.tv/Slatey with an underscore after the Y, 2 Ys and an underscore. Make sure you check that out. He's an amazing streamer. Really one of the, as far as it goes with somebody that is actually present as far as being present for their community. He always interacts with his chat, and he's got a great way of streaming. You will not be disappointed.
Making me blush. Anyway, thanks, man, for being on. And thanks for anyone listening. We'll see you next time, probably in like 2 months when we do another one of these. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Later.